our business. But our goal, again, is to not kill your deals, keep you guys out of court, and that's really it. I just wanted to thank you all for your support. I'm your sales manager. I'm Kenny Richardson. I'll leave some business cards if you ever have any questions. If you ever need anything, please call me directly. I'm here to help you guys and support you through the process. And again, make sure we're taking care of those deals for you. So thanks again for your support. I really appreciate working with all of you. And nice to see you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Kenny. Good job. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty. Certified green is an advertising slogan or whatever. The bullet point on the ad might be, this house is a certified green residence, or planet friendly, or whatever. This is starting to be a problem in court. Buyers come into court and say, well, who certified it? What does that mean? How do I keep the certification going? That sort of thing. And it's really kind of a big confused mess right now. So unless it is a local program, like I did something last week in Ojai for the Board of Realtors there, and they have like a little local environmental thing that's very well sourced, and it's just in that little community. That's different. But just as a generic planet-friendly certified green, got to be careful about that. And a word that is becoming an issue, not a new word, but it's new to advertising as a litigation factor, is the word sustainable, where the bullet point may be something like, this home offers sustainable living or whatever for years to come. The first problem is that a lot of people do not know how to define the word sustainable. When I do like a big event and have like all day, I'll do a survey and I get like 5, 6, 7 different definitions of it. So have to be careful with that. The actual dictionary definition is capable of being continued with minimal long-term effect on the environment. Kind of like my unemployed nephew on the sofa, just kind of hangs out and doesn't really affect anything up or down. So the word on the street in legal circles now is, if you want to say in your advertising that your philosophy of life, your team's philosophy or approach is about sustainability, doesn't seem to be a problem with it. But I'd be very careful about saying that the property for sale is to use the word sustainable for that, because you don't know who's going to live there, what their lifestyle is going to be like, and that can backfire as well. So, we get in trouble for advertising as well. Some issues coming into court now with unlicensed assistants, as maybe, with more multiple offers and agents getting busier, more getting assistants that are not a real estate licensee. And the two areas that we have to be particularly cautious about have to do with open houses and advertising. Keep in mind that an assistant who's not a licensee is not supposed to show property, not supposed to discuss pricing. They can sit the open house, they can pass out materials. The problem is when the buyers come by and say, hey, can you show us around, and what's with the interest rates these days, and they start a dialogue. Buyers go into court saying, and whether they're telling the truth or not, this whole legal mess started when we were taking a Sunday afternoon drive. We saw this beautiful home, had a open house sign in front, so we went in, and believe it or not, we ended up buying the house, and whoever was sitting in that place started yakking away about whatever, and that's where everything went downhill. So that's the allegation anyway. And advertising, an assistant who's not a licensee can put an ad together like a flyer or whatever. They can create it, do everything they want to it, lay it out. It should not go out to the buying and selling public until a licensee has approved it. So we've got to be careful about that. Prestige areas. This has to do with advertising, and it has to do with a part of town, and most communities have a part of town like this, that is maybe kind of a more expensive area, kind of the nicer place to live. Since I don't live around here, let me ask you a question. Other than a gated community, what is a part of Walnut or nearby that kind of has a prestige name, more expensive homes, but not a gated community?
Three Oaks.
What?
Three Oaks.
Three Oaks. Okay, let me ask you next. You know when you're in Three Oaks and you know when you're not. Are there homes that could be in it and they're not really, people are sure, is it cut and dried, or is there like a little area where maybe they are, maybe they aren't?
Cut and dried.
Cut and dried, okay. Anything that's not cut and dried? Like, what's that?
Snow Creek.
Snow Creek, okay, well, I'll use that as an example. That's out in another area. I live in Carlsbad. Maybe you've heard of La Costa.
Nice.
There's no city of La Costa. It's just part of Carlsbad, and people don't know where it starts and stops. They kind of know where it is, but get too far away, then you're not there. Close, you're there, and there's this fringe or whatever, and nobody's quite sure. So I'll give you an example that we're familiar with in West LA. Bel Air, ultra high-end area in West LA area. But as you may know, it's not a city. It's part of the city of LA. And I'll tell you how this can backfire. You can apply it to any place that would fit this bill. This is a 405, so San Fernando Valley, Santa Monica, I-10, whatever. So Beverly Hills is around there. But that's easy. It's a city, 90210. It's got its own zip code. Everybody, if you're either in it, you're out of it. It's like a gated community. It's got a border around it. But Bel Air, similar prestige area, is part of LA. So it's around here for sure, but nobody quite knows where it starts and stops. So there were buyers that were living in Texas, I think, obviously affluent buyers. They had a friend in the business in the West Side, and they said if a good deal ever comes on the market in either Beverly Hills or Bel Air, let us know. So good one came on the market in Bel Air. They end up buying the home. They move in. They meet their neighbors. I don't know how you meet neighbors when you move in a home like this, but somehow they met them. You know, hello. And they said, hey, we just love living here in Bel Air. And the neighbors said, this isn't Bel Air. That's like about a mile down the road. Or this isn't, what's the one you mentioned? Snow Creek? This isn't Snow Creek. It's more like Snow. It's like a few blocks down there. They said, really? And so they asked their neighbors, and all the neighbors agreed with what the other neighbors said, so they sued. They had 3 appraisers come in, and they remedied the case by having each appraiser give their opinion as to how much more, in their opinions, the buyers paid to be in this special prestige named area. They average those out. They throw in something for therapy, pain, suffering, and they really do. And they award that to the buyers. So make sure that if you're going to use the name of some really neat area that's not gated to try to lure in a buyer, attract a buyer, make sure that when the buyers move in, they find out that everybody around them, all their neighbors, have the very clear perception that they're really living there. Speaking of gates and guards, or guarded areas, this was a case involving a condo development. The second line on the flyer was a guard-gated neighborhood, and married couple buyers, after they moved in, so they're already in the property, escrow's closed. For some reason, Mr. Byers, reading the flyer, he's got a copy of it, he asked his wife, where's the guard? I've seen the gate, but I haven't seen the guard. Actually, I haven't seen a guard either. So we have guard-gated and gate-guarded. A little bit of a difference here. So, gate guarded, you know, got a gate, little remote control thing to get in and out. It gets more confusing when we write down guard gated, because there's been some litigation, especially in some of the nicer areas, where when you write down guard gated like on a flyer, does that imply to a reasonable, prudent buyer, should you ever meet one, that there's somebody there 24/7, you know, they're there all the time. In this particular neighborhood, there's a guard there 24/7, but there's another way in and out back there to the right that's a remote control gate. So is it really guard gated or not? It can get confusing and litigious. This was an easy case, so I'll keep it really simple. There was no guard there. It was a gated condo development. So the buyers sued for like false advertising. They won, I think they got like $26,000 on this or something. And the judge reprimanded the listing agent out loud in court and said, you should not have written down guard gated. You should have written down gate guarded. Now, if you want to get around the whole problem, no matter what they've got going there, gated neighborhood, gated community tends to take care of it. You don't get into the difficulty. Report wording, I'm going to apply this, and I'll do this in another one, and we'll see if there are any questions. I got a couple questions before I started, so I'll mention those. I'll apply this to the home inspection industry. I always have a camera with me when I'm driving around. I saw this sign at a restaurant, "We never close," which I assume means they're open 24 hours a day. Denny's does the same thing, but they say it in a different way. They have "always open," which I think means that I think these are identical meanings here, but they're said differently. This is a negative expression. Never is a negative word. Close is a negative word. Always is positive, and open is positive. So this is probably better. I read where the Denny's Corporation, they spent like $1 million on focus groups, consultants to come up with this. For 10 grand, I would have done it for them, but they didn't ask me. 5,000, I would have done it. So anyway, let's say you refer business to a home inspector in the area that writes down habitually, cracks noted above fireplace at living room wall, indicating the possibility of structural defects. What's in yellow there does not belong in their report. It certainly doesn't belong in our disclosure. It doesn't belong in theirs either. Those cracks can indicate all kinds of things: structural defects, soils problems, earthquake issues, a big tree outside with the tree roots, lousy building materials, poor construction techniques, and you can go on and on and on. It's not a home inspector's place to come up with a speculation list in alarmist language of the possible scenarios that may be going on there that will scare the buyer away, and then it blows the deal. You know, keep in mind that the home inspection industry is unregulated. As I think Kenny mentioned it, there's no licensing for it. So you've got to be real careful. And if you see this kind of wording showing up, rather than just a period after the word wall, habitually with a particular home inspector, just take them off your list. And it's much better. You won't, less chance of blowing the deal. And I'll end with this one, stating the obvious. I'm sometimes asked, you've got like a house here, there's like a Walmart, let's say next door, right next door, big huge store. Do you really need to tell the buyers here that there's this really huge store next door, because it's pretty easy to see right there? And some agents say, I don't want to disclose it because it's kind of like an insult to the client's intelligence or whatever, kind of like this this sign here, caution, water on road during rain. I kind of figured that one out myself. So when I tell the buyers here that there are these oil derricks like practically in their backyard, or the buyers on the right, there's a school across the street, and these are some litigation photos. See the house in these trees here, back up, the house is in there, and then back up farther, it's in there somewhere. But I mentioned that there are like trees around or something, I don't know. And then finally, when I tell the buyer here that there's a freeway pretty darn close, like right there it is, all right? And the answer is yes, you gotta tell them. You think, well, what do they say if it ever hits the fan in court and they're asked, how did you miss this? I mean, it's so obvious. Well, don't forget, when they get this question, before they get the question, their attorney knows the question's coming. So it's not a surprise. They've already rehearsed it in the attorney's office, again, you know, over and over and over again. I'll give you an example. This is up in Northern California, I forget exactly where. Out-of-state buyer said he always wanted to live next to a park. He looked at this house, he looked at some others, flew back home, made a buying decision on this, back home. And it wasn't until he moved in, he said, that he realized that the park was a memorial park, a cemetery. Still a park, a different kind of park. He said, I don't want to live next door to a cemetery. You know, some people would, some people don't care. It's just kind of a personal thing. He said, I never would have bought the home. And the question, of course, came up. You know, you were there, you know, I think in July, it was a nice sunny day. You were there apparently for about an hour and a half. You were in the backyard a few times. How did you not see this? Now, he's already rehearsed this, and his answer was, I left my glasses at home when I flew here. And I didn't want to go out and buy new prescription glasses, so I can only see like 10 feet in front of me, whatever, well. And then you know he's quoting the attorney when he says, I was counting on the person representing me in the transaction to, you know, whatever. So another one I've heard, usually out-of-state buyers, we missed our flight, we got a later flight, we didn't get actually in town and didn't see the home till like 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock, it was dark, couldn't see around us or whatever. So no matter how obvious something is, make sure you disclose it. Much better to be safe on that than sorry. Okay, just right now, any questions at all? Yes, sir.
On disclosures, I have a situation where a year ago the house was a marijuana growing house.
Right, right.
Okay, that house obviously has been resold. It has been resold. It's not obvious. The house.
You said it's been resold?
Yeah.